Peter Gabriel. What a crazy music career this guy has had. From fronting the prog rock giant Genesis to branching off on his own, and eventually becoming a brief 1980s pop star. Peter Gabriel is one of the only artists that has always done things his way. There are zero compromises in this man's musical catalog, mostly for the better, but sometimes for the worse. To the uninitiated, Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins were in the same band for several years and broke off into solo careers around the same time. So, pardon my occasional comparisons between the two. I just find it so interesting how two people in the same band can branch off into totally different musical paths when left to their own devices. Now, as I've said, Peter Gabriel's new album, I.O., was just released about a week ago, but it was supposed to come out as early as 2004. But due to various tours, projects, other projects, and then some side projects, I.O. got shelved and became the thing of legend. I remember hearing the name I.O. being bandied about all the way back in 2004, and I thought, great, I can't wait to hear this new album since I'm all jazzed up for this Peter Gabriel guy. Well, good thing he had lots of older material for me to feast on while I waited. I think Guns N' Roses fans may be the only other fan base to understand what kind of a farce this album was starting to look like. But Pete, being the ever-vigilant social media stalwart that he is, started blasting out his newsletters, informing his fans that the new album was, in fact, coming out. And as recently as January 2023, we heard the first single, Panopticon. After that, a new single was dropped monthly, which, honestly, if you're releasing a new album full of new material these days, that's how you have to do it if you want all your songs to get equal representation, because nobody buys CDs anymore. By the time the album was released, we had mostly heard every track individually, but being able to listen to the entire album from start to finish was a nice experience in continuity. With this album, there is a bright mix and a dark side mix of every song. Now, I covered Peter Gabriel's first few releases back when they came out, and I even did some A/B testing of the mixes for some of these other songs, and I gotta say, I don't really get the whole bright side, dark side mix thing. He felt it so necessary that both of these versions of the same songs be heard that he included both mixes on the same album. The mixes to me aren't that markedly different. I think if you had a really high-end sound system and obsessively listened to both versions, you could pick out some different choices that were made, but overall I felt it was unnecessary and kind of an odd move. But with all that out of the way, let's review the damn album already. Now, I won't be leaning too heavily on the lyrical content in most of these songs because, as I've said in the past many times, lyrics aren't really a deal breaker for me. I'm more of a fan of the overall sound of the song, with lyrics just being one small part. Alright, this first song, Panopticon. Let's figure out what that word even means. So, a panopticon with an N at the end instead of an N, it was a concept by 18th century English philosopher and social theorist Jeremy Bentham. It was a rotunda with an inspection house in the middle that was mainly used in prisons. The concept was that, since the building is a giant circle with an observation tower in the center, no one prisoner ever knew if they were being observed, which created a self-regulatory system of conduct. It was psychological, man. Here we have Peter's interpretation, Panopticon, which refers to the digital age with the government or perhaps some kind of big brother constantly watching us, but we never know when or where. As usual, Pete's able to squeeze yet another interesting concept out of that brain of his. Meanwhile, his former colleague Phil Collins is being startled by the sound of his own farts. I'm sorry, I know that was mean, but seriously, kids, say no to extreme alcohol abuse and cortisone steroids. Anyway, let's look at this track. It's got a nice menacing electronic landscape. It's got Pete's unmistakable howl at the beginning of the song, which sounds pretty much exactly the same as it has for the last 35 years, which really is like one of the more incredible things about this album as a whole. Most reviews of this album in professional publications have said as much. Just how well preserved Pete's voice is just kind of a feat in and of itself, and I will be pointing out some examples as we go along here. As far as just the overall sound of the album, the production of this record sounds very similar to his 2002 album Up, which makes sense seeing as all of his records since his soundtrack Passion have mainly been recorded at his real-world studios, so of course they're all going to be colored with the same kind of production sound. The chorus of this song has a dark excitement about it. Not to make comparisons here, but Pete is sounding just as vibrant as he did 20 years ago, or 35 years ago, as I just said. Now, let's talk about Peter Gabriel and technology. It seems like Pete is often victim of adopting technology just a little too early, before it's quite ready to be pulled out of the oven. And the music video for this song, Panopticon, is no different. He's the first artist that I know of that did a full-ass music video using 100% AI-generated images. At least that's damn well what it looks like to me. You can look at the video for yourself. I knew that eventually some artist out there was going to do an entire music video just using this new AI video-generating technology. Hell, I wanted to do some musical content using AI because I thought when it first came out, which when you're taking into context AI technology, it's so damn new and it's evolved so fast that even 4 months ago I thought this is just incredible, this AI video and all the ads for AI video, how it's showing like a real, video of someone's playing the drums, and then it shows the AI conversion and how just visually it was so different and unique. And, Pete was the guy. Peter Gabriel was the guy, the first guy that I know of, and I could be wrong on this, to take a whole-ass music video and make it all AI generated. And it's going to age terribly for him doing that. And he throughout his whole career, he's always been huge on the newest technology. But the problem is he doesn't. It's like he wants to beat everyone to the punch, and he doesn't sit back and wait for it to like kind of perfect itself and become more viable. He's like right on before anybody else. I mean, if anybody is a Peter Gabriel fan, if you remember the music video for Steam, that is some of the cringiest CGI. Like, we were not there yet with CGI, and Pete's like, no, mate, I want to go ahead and do it. We're pushing into the 21st century here, mate. And that video aged so bad. I did a whole reaction video a long time ago. A lot of the music videos he did in the 80s, some of them were okay, but there was a lot of not so great stuff going on there. Then into the 90s with the multimedia stuff, with the computers, and he had a whole like game at some point.
Just try anything. You've got to do something now. Just do anything. Did it tickle? You want to come up to my place? You like some fun? Don't just sit there. Do something.
It was just really bad. And now here he is with the video for Panopticon, where he's using AI, and it's going to age like fine soured milk. It looks cool for now. But next month it will look dated. But anyway, so we get to track 2, The Court. It's a very interesting African percussion thing starting throughout the song. Pete's big on African percussion, always has been. Pete's doing some talk singing in the verses with a nice melodic chorus. And the court will rise as the pillars all fall. The bridge has a very dark theatrical lift. This song sounds like a track that would have easily fit on the album Us, but it's like Us on steroids, which is a good thing. The next track we have is Playing for Time. This song sounds like a song that could have easily been written by Randy Newman, which I know is an influence of Pete's. Oh yeah, I call him Pete because like me and Pete are like best friends, like personally, so I'm allowed to call him Pete. It's like, hey mate, would you like to get a drink with me at the pub? Sure, mate. Sounds good to me. Anyway, that was awful. Though this is a softer piano-driven piece, I can't help but to think of all of his orchestral albums that came before I.O. as heavily influencing many of the songs on this album, this being one of them. There's a good bit of background orchestration, which is quite beautiful. And again, I can't believe how fucking preserved Peter's voice is. This dude's voice doesn't sound that much older on this track than it did maybe on a track such as Chamber of 32 Doors off The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway in 1975. So if you like the track Washing of the Water off of Us, I would say definitely give this track a listen. Up next, I.O. Here we have yet another softer piano-based song based off the album's namesake. I gotta say, when Pete does these more lyrically simplistic songs, he really does a good job pulling at the heartstrings. This song is sweet. That's the best way I can describe it, but not in an overly sappy kind of way. I really feel like these lyrics, which are basically about things, being created, things fade away, and he finds himself just a part of it all. And accepting that kind of beautiful way to look at life and death, input, output, I'm just a part of this whole tapestry of creation and death. The chorus picks up with louder, more dynamic instrumentation. We even get to hear some of Peter's famous falsetto, which I always thought sounded fucking amazing. Up next, track 5, Four Kinds of Horses. Song starts out dark with some mildly distorted, plinky synthesizers. This is all standard Peter Gabriel fare at this point. Not a bad thing at all. It's what you want to hear on a Peter Gabriel album. Yet another dark Peter Gabriel song. God, why is he so good at making these types of dark, moody songs? And Phil Collins sucked so bad at attempting to do that. I don't know. Different personalities, I suppose. In this bridge, you can really hear the crafting on these songs. You can hear the time and consideration that was taken in, and all the choices that were made, all the sonic soundscapes and background instrument choices that you definitely won't catch through a first-time listen. You just gotta love the craftsmanship that is really felt through those 21 years of, really honing. Up next is track 6, Road to Joy. Now, if I were to judge a song just simply based off its title, it would be this one. But fortunately, this song is much better than its title. This song gives me pseudo Kiss That Frog vibes, but with a way funkier and more powerful chorus. I swear this album should have been called Us Part 2. There's so many of the tracks on this record that sound like souped up B-sides off of Us. And again, that is not a bad thing. This song and perhaps Panopticon to me would be the singles off the album if I were to pick. This is Peter's perfunctory funk song that he seems to have on almost every album since So, although Up didn't seem to have a very funky song on there. It was a very dark, depressing album. Still good, but dark and depressing. Up next is number 7, So Much. The vocal recording of this track is very naked and unaffected. It's sitting dead in the middle. I just fucked my whole world up by trying to demonstrate that. That's crazy. Not only did I mess up my hat anyway. The vocal track is sitting like dead in the middle if you're wearing headphones. Like sometimes it'll be stereo separated and you'll hear like it's more of a atmospheric voice that's surrounding you. With this one, it's like right in the middle of your head where you're hearing his vocal, almost as though he recorded it on a more basic microphone like a Shure SM58. I feel like this is supposed to be a more naked, raw song conveying the emotion of the lyrics, which to me is handling the reality of the physical body becoming elderly, even though the mind continues to aspire to do so many things, but grappling with the fact that only so much can be done before you die, essentially. Kind of a bummer track, not gonna lie. My least favorite so far, but still not bad. Next we have Oliver Tree. Okay, now Pete is hitting us with something upbeat. And wow, the horns on this chorus. Did he borrow Phil Collins' horn section? This sounds like a song that could have been ripped straight from his first solo record, Car. The dichotomy of minor in the verse to the very upbeat is an interesting change-up that keeps me intrigued as to what is to come next. And I will say, though, a fun and uplifting song, it does get a little bit long in the tooth at 6 minutes long. Though the other songs are easily that long or more, the length just didn't feel quite right on this one. Up next is track number 9, Love Can Heal. Okay, pretty generic song title, but the song starts out strong and dark, just like I like my men. I don't know why that was said. There is various marimba and synth in the background, almost reminiscent of San Jacinto. For someone who never likes to look backward, there are a lot of musical callbacks on this record to previous works, which, I of course love. For the chorus hook of this song, we have vocalist Melanie Gabriel, Peter Gabriel's own flesh and blood, lending a soft, breathy reprieve. Also in that mix is Jenny Abrahamson and Linnea Olson. Track number 10 is a song called This Is Home. This song has a folky hand clap rhythm, but other than that, I gotta say, this song didn't do all that much for me. Pulling in towards the end with track 11's And Still, again with light touches of orchestral adornment, this is another softer track that is seemingly Peter's comfort zone as I go on listening further to this album. This is also apparently a counterpart to OVO's Father Son when it comes to the lyrics. I'm no interpretive lyrical genius, but I can't help but to feel this song is about Peter's mother, with lyrics such as, "You warmed me like the sun in your belly with your food. I feel you everywhere and I'll carry you inside me." This song so far is probably my least favorite, though the lyrical sentiment is sweet. The vehicle for transporting these lyrics, say the music, is just so slow, sleepy, and kind of meandering. And finally, we get to the last track, Live and Let Live, the last song on the album. According to the lyrics, this is an anti-war song, I'm going to assume, but musically, they've kind of lost me at this point. It feels like Sting light. The anti-war sentiments are not those of a pissed-off, idealistic young man, but they're very balanced, sober, and edgeless, which is perfectly fine, but it just didn't really inspire me all that much. I don't really see this being the next big anti-war anthem, but it doesn't have to be. So that is my take on the new Peter Gabriel album. I think it's a fine album. I think that I like it more than Up, honestly. The album in 2002. That was just such a dark album, Up. Us was amazing in, 94, I think, Up, or Us came out, the U names. But no, I think this is this album kind of like threw me off a little bit because of the new way that people consume music. I had already heard dribs and drabs of all these songs, so by the time the compilation or the album came out, I just like buried the lead there. It felt like a compilation of songs, of like singles off an album that never existed. That's the weird world we live in now with how songs are released. So by the time I get the entire continuity of this album, it's like, oh yeah, I've heard this song, this song, this song. Haven't heard that song. I've heard this song. So it was, my whole thing was like, even as recent as a couple years ago, my band Dancing with Ghosts, I wanted during the pandemic to record like a whole new album. And I only wanted to release like 2 or 3 songs from a 12-song LP. And my singer Ari informed me that's not how people are doing it anymore. And at the time, even in 2020, I was like, oh, poppycock. People still drop full albums and only release 1 or 2 singles to tease you to buy the album. And then I realized after so many bands have dropped albums since then, no, literally that's not how people drop albums anymore. Like, there are no such thing as singles per se. Like, if you're a really big megastar like Drake, you may release a single with a very expensive music video, but for most other artists, there's no singles anymore because they're not going to get played on radio anyway, which was the whole point of a single. It was supposed to be the hookiest, catchiest song on the record that pretty much suckers you into buying the actual album. And with Peter Gabriel and many other artists that aren't these guys that are going to get played on radio, not in America at least, they just have to drip songs out, one song per month, and it to me it was like spoilers. That's why I didn't want to do that with my album. I was like, well, I don't want to drop a new song every month. That seems like A, overkill, and B, it's like the whole album is spoiled by the time the full album comes out. It's like, oh yeah, I've already heard these songs. It's not like this huge surprise, like, oh, I've only heard 2 of these 12 songs. So I guess that's kind of what hindered it for me, because on, say, Up, an album that I bought when it was released, I had heard like 1 song off the record, maybe, if that. Like, it was like a whole batch of brand spanking new songs I'd never heard before. And that goes for any of the other albums of the artists that I actually bought the CD when it came out. I remember buying Hail to the Thief by Radiohead back in around 2002, actually a similar year. And I had heard 1 song there, and then everything else was new. And I don't know, times have changed, I guess. And I'm glad Pete's staying up to date with this kind of shit, because this is how you maximize your streams. And I want Peter to be as successful as possible, because he's one of the last true artists of our I would not say our generation, because he's far past our generation, but of our time musically. But anyway, that's my view of the latest Peter Gabriel album. Let me know what you think of the album itself, and if you subscribe to my channel for hit pieces on YouTube has-beens, then I apologize, but yeah, that's not what I mainly do on here. So anyway, have a good rest of your night.